Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Upper Tier Podcast, and this is the Monday mashup. Kind of a Halloween special, so hopefully you're all keeping well out there. Hopefully the trick or treating's going well, and the fireworks, no accidents or anything like that, and everyone's staying safe and being careful. Last thing we need is any bad news from a Halloween night. But hope you're all having a good time out there. Hope the trick or treating's going well. No one's giving you any apples or oranges, the kind of stuff we used to get years ago when we did it. Even we had some neighbours back in the day when we used to do trick or treating as well. They used to give you like a couple of quid, but we always knew those houses. They were the ones that hit first, of course. But these days it's all chocolate and sweets and all that kind of stuff. So good stuff. Take it easy. Don't go easy on those sugar rushes and all that kind of stuff. Those young kids and stuff like that. Flying a solo show tonight. Darren is busy, of course, with the kids. He's young kids, so they go out trick or treating and fireworks and all that kind of stuff. And Marky's the same, so the two boys are busy this week. So instead of jump on and do a solo show, taking a look. We'll take a look as always at the Premier League action from the weekend and the effect it had on the table. We'll also take a look at the Champions League where things stand at the moment going into the last round of fixtures this week. But what I really want to do, the bulk of the show, what I was going to do was I was going to look at the season so far, take a look at the Premier League season so far. And we're about a third of a way through the season now. Only a couple of games to go now before we break up for the World Cup. It's mad how quick that 14, 13, 14, 15 games has gone by so quick, really. It's been an absolute rat race to it. But we said we'd take a look, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at there's a predicted table out there. We're going to have a look at the results from the traditional top six as well. We have a bit of a table there to look at as well, and how those results have gone, because as we know, especially for us, for me as a Liverpool fan, last season, a lot of our season hinged on our results against the top six and essentially the top four. That had a real effect on our season. So we'll take a look at that. We have a predicted table out to the end of the season based on what we've seen so far. So we'll give our thoughts on that and how each team is doing and stuff like that. And then if there's any questions, anyone in the stream or anyone in the chat who wants to ask anything, fire it away. Drop your questions in there as much as you can. It's an interactive show, of course, and we will discuss those things as well. But we'll start off. We'll take a look at the Premier League action from the weekend. No better place to start. So when we look at that, the results were interesting. Man City winning 1-0 against Leicester. Um, Man City looking dominant, I think, for most of the games, but Leicester came into their own in the game towards the second half and stuff like that. But I don't know. I expected probably a bit more from Leicester, especially they were going in there, of course, on the anniversary of the owner who sadly passed away in that helicopter crash and stuff like that. So I'm sure it was an emotional week for Leicester City Football Club. But City doing what they have to do, even without Haaland available. And they went briefly top of the table as well until Arsenal played. Bournemouth 2, Spurs 3. Talking about a game of two halves. Bournemouth were absolutely sensational, going 2-0 up. But Spurs found a way to grind it back out and get the win after a lot of criticism for Antonio Conte and the team. It was really, really important that they got a win against Bournemouth, and we'll talk about them later in the Champions League. They have a huge Champions League night coming up this week, away to Marseille, where they have to get the win. So that should be interesting. Brentford won, Wolves won. Kind of an interesting one. I think when we did the preview with Darren, we said that Brentford would probably run out winners in this, but finished up being a 1-1 draw. Kind of symptomatic. It's kind of on how they're playing at the moment, especially Wolves. Very, very blunt at the moment. Then one of the shocks of the weekend, and it may or may not be a shock to people, who knows, but Graham Potter was heading back to Brighton with Chelsea, and it ended up Brighton 4, Chelsea 1. This was a strange game. Chelsea all over the place. Coughed up 2 OGs as well. But I don't know. It's very unusual. You see Thiago Silva getting caught like that and stuff, and it's just a strange one for Chelsea at the moment. They're kind of going through kind of a transition at the moment. Potter's gone in there, hasn't really had an opportunity to put his stamp on the team yet, but still has been doing decent in the results. I think up till this, I think if I'm right, I think this was probably his first loss. I think I'm not too sure, but I think it was. I think up to that, I think he had was it 7 wins and 3 draws, or 8 wins and 2 draws, or something like that. But doing a really good job there at Chelsea, he was. But the last couple of weeks, he's kind of come a little bit unstuck in terms of maybe selection, and also in terms of his tactics, which is unusual for Graham Potter. He's normally meticulous in his preparation. But just coming a little bit unstuck there with Chelsea, and methinks that could be refreshing in the squad in the January window, I'd imagine. But still looking good, Chelsea. Crystal Palace won, Southampton 0. Another tough result for the governor to take down there in Southampton. Palace again had scored one. I think they scored one, was disallowed, and then they came back and scored another one, and that was allowed. So that was a big win for Palace as well, especially coming off a really poor result last week. So it was important that Vieira and the boys got back to winning ways at home at Selhurst Park. Newcastle absolutely ran rampant against Aston Villa. We know Unai Emery is taking over as manager, but he ain't taking the reins, I think, officially until tomorrow. So I think he was in the stands for this one, as far as I know. But what he had said, what he would have seen, he wouldn't be overly happy with. Newcastle were absolutely brilliant. Callum Wilson at the moment, again, making a case for his inclusion in the England side. Really, really good. Newcastle looking really, really good under Eddie Howe, I have to say. And again, they'll probably go into the January window and strengthen again to push on potentially to get a top 4, maybe top 6 spot solidified. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Eddie Howe doing a fabulous job, really reinventing some of the players there. Almiron, like a new signing. Joe Linton, absolutely exceptional. And we've seen it even at the tail end of last season, the effect that he was having there and stuff like that. He's made a huge difference to Newcastle there. They look really, really organised, really tough to beat. And now they're starting to score goals. And they're carrying injuries as well. So really, really impressive to see them to be able to shoulder that as well. Fulham 0, Everton 0. This was your half-5 game. If there was ever, this was just crazy altogether. Mitrovic could have had a hat-trick there, I say, but he didn't. And then I was thinking going in, then we had another evening game, then the 7:45 one, of course, Liverpool and Leeds. So I was thinking, right, we get the Fulham and the Everton one out of the way, 0-0. That's a tough one to call. But then we went to the Liverpool game. Fulham, of course, so we have to say Marco Silva doing an exceptional job there. Mitrovic has been outstanding, and a number of other players there at Fulham. So they're doing a great job as well. And they're up in the dizzy heights, I think, of 7th. So doing a fantastic job there at the moment. You're looking at a lot of these teams at the minute as well, and they look like they were potentially going to fall away and stuff like that. But they're not. Week in, week out, they're grinding out results. And if they're not winning, they're getting draws. So they're doing a real good job. The likes of Fulham, Brighton, Newcastle doing an exceptional job as well, and even Palace is up there. So yeah, really, really good. Really competitive league this year. I mean, if you park kind of Arsenal and City and stuff like that, but other than that, then it looks really, really competitive there. And it's like there's a number of new competitors, let's say, have entered the ring in terms of top 4 and top 6 race. So good to see it. Liverpool versus Leeds. You don't need to ask me really about that, how I felt about it. It was an absolute shit show and an absolute disaster. I couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Did create a couple of chances. But if you don't take your chances at this level, you know you're going to get punished. Leeds, in fairness to them, were dogged. We did pin them back for a while and stuff like that, especially in the first half. But they rode their luck at times and stuff like that. But they certainly on the break could have caught us a few times as well. Bamford could have had a couple of chances. The boy Somerville looks like a really good player. Had a really, really good game out there. Not easy playing against Robbo and stuff like that. And it was kind of written maybe that he was the guy who was going to pop up and get the winner. But we were absolutely deplorable. That end, defensive end, with the goal that we gave away was just absolutely shocking. 3 Liverpool players standing around. This guy still gets a shot away. Was really, really poor. And that's a poor result for us. And that's back-to-back poor results in the league, although we had a good win against Ajax midweek. So a lot of work for Liverpool to do. Methinks they need to get players back, but also in the transfer window. But they also need to solidify some of those players that are there at the moment, because regardless of injuries and regardless of the lack of signings, the two teams that we put out against Forest and Leeds should have had enough to get the job done. But just complacency and lackluster and not being on it from the get-go has cost us again and again. Seen a little article today saying Liverpool 9 games since May, they have fallen behind, gone 1-0 behind inside 16 minutes for 9 games since May. And when you're falling behind like that in 9 games, there's an inherent bigger problem than just an injury list or a transfer situation. There's definitely something going on there that just needs to be resolved. Players just don't seem at it. The drop off from Liverpool is monumental. I don't think I've ever seen this big a drop off from a team from where they were. Excuse me. And we go into Sunday, and the questions were being asked: could Arsenal bounce back now and take lead in the Premier League again? Could they hold their fire against Man City and match them like for like and stuff like that? And boy, did they go out and do that, beating Nottingham Forest 5-0. Remember, this is a Forest side who last week beat Liverpool 1-0. So Arsenal went out, took the lead 1-0 in the first half, and then straight off the second half, Reece Nelson comes on and scores 2. Excuse me. Absolutely sensational from the lad. And then I think it was Odegaard who got a goal as well, took his goal lovely as well. And yeah, they were just, Arsenal just look real legit at the moment, don't they? When you look at them, they just look like they're really on it and stuff like that. So fair play to them. Back top of the table as well, and they don't look like they're going to relent anytime soon. And he's starting to get, the one thing I like about Arteta as well, and any of you Gunner fans who are watching the show and stuff like that, he's really starting to get something out of some of those players that you would have regarded or previously as bang average. Like for Reece Nelson to come off the bench like that and put in a performance like that, just goes to show you that potentially you might have a bit of a squad there and some depth and some options. And tell you, if you can keep on going all the way now to the breakup for the World Cup, you're in with a real good shout and a real good chance. The Super Sunday 4:30 was from Old Trafford. Man United 1, West Ham 0. Absolute masterclass performance from David De Gea. Still can't believe that he's not on the Spanish side. Outstanding goalkeeper. The save he made from Rice and stuff like that and all. But it was some good play as well from United. The goal that they took, the Marcus Rashford header, was a real powerful header. And something that Man United fans were saying that they haven't seen for a long, long time. And even the intricate play between Bruno and Eriksen was fantastic to watch and stuff like that. Really, really good the way they set up the goal and stuff like that. And Marcus Rashford shown his power, finally taking that header at the back post, really, really strong and stuff like that. And they're starting to show that bit of bite and that bit of guile under Eric Ten Hag, which I think looks really, really impressive for United. And again, they may go out and strengthen again in January. Apparently, there's going to be money there for Ten Hag if he wants to. So United could push greatly into that top 4. And maybe even further. They're not a million miles away. So, what that all means for the table, I'll just go into full screen for that because it's a white background and barely see it. Arsenal sitting top with 31 points. Man City with 29. Tottenham, after playing 13, with 26. Newcastle have also played 13 with 24. United sitting in 5th, just outside the Champions League spots with 23. Chelsea the same in 6th with 21. After that poor result against Brighton. Fulham up to 19 and 7th. Brighton in 8th with 18. Liverpool 9th with 16 after 12 games. Palace just below them on 16, basically goal difference. Brentford in 11th with 15, and so forth, down to the bottom. Then if you look at the bottom, you've got Leeds were the big winners at the weekend when they beat us. They climbed out of the bottom 3 up to 15th. Now I'm sitting on 12 points. But that relegation battle, with the exception of Forest, who are really, really struggling at the moment. And it's a tough one for Stevie Cooper there as well, because they've come up, they've signed a lot of players. I think he signed either 22 or 23 players. And he's still trying to figure out what his best lineup is, what his best formation is. And when things don't go quite right, he's quite trigger happy in the way that he changes things. So he doesn't give whatever he tries to deploy out there, he doesn't give it time to land. So it's hard to know whether the decisions he's making are right because they're not given the time to basically develop, if you like. So he's sitting there on 9 points. Now, he's not set adrift by any means after 13 games. Because if you look, the difference between, say, there's only 5 points between 20th and 12th, where everything is, or 6 points if you want to go as far as Brentford, or 7 points if you want to go as far as Liverpool in our Crystal Palace in 10th and Liverpool in 9th. So they're not set adrift by any means, but they need to start trying to pick up results and pick up points somewhere to start moving up the table if they want to stay in the Premier League this season. Wolves is kind of a weird one. They haven't got a manager in place yet. They're struggling to tie down a manager now. I think it's been must be 8 to 10 weeks at this stage now. They're trying to get a manager tied down. It seems a long, long time for a team, like a Premier League team. And especially if you're going to pull the trigger on your manager, you would have thought that they might have had an idea or something in place, a plan, but they haven't yet. But they do have some really, really good players. But they're probably just lacking a little bit of direction at the moment, and they're struggling up front as well for goals, which is not a great combination. Leicester, have been picking up some decent results, but obviously the loss to Man City, which again can be expected or unexpected depending on what way you look at it. It was an emotional week for them, but they're in 18th on 11 points, so it has been a really poor start for Brendan. And for Leicester City, and they need to find their mojo again. And if Vardy's back in the team, he'll get you goals. James Madison's there, Barnes and all. They've got the makings of good players there, so they should be okay. But again, when you're down there and you're under pressure, sometimes it's very difficult to climb out of that. The one I'd be very concerned about would be Southampton. Again, they have some decent players, but they just look a little bit rudderless at the moment under Hasenhüttl. And I wonder, maybe are some of these teams looking to maybe make change or pull the trigger during the World Cup break or something like that, just get there and stuff like that. Villa, as we know, have appointed Emery. Again, they're on 12 as well. So, all the way up as far as, even up as far as 11, I'd say Brentford. They just need to be so careful, because you miss out on a couple of results or something like that, or you go on a run or 2 or 3 bad results. Next thing you find yourself back down there, bang slap in the middle of it. And there's a long ways to go. No one's really badly set adrift yet. It's very, very tight at this stage, considering we're a third of the season in. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out over the next 2 to 3 league games, where it all ends up. Back out of full screen. So that's your Premier League wrap up from the weekend there, and my thoughts on it. Let's get into the Champions League. So if you look at the Champions League at the moment, these are the fixtures that are coming up this week. If you look at that breakdown for the round of 16, you can see that 12 teams have already qualified. Some are a little preoccupied, still 4 places to be filled. Spurs will be hoping to be one of those. They're playing on match day 6, of course, against away to Marseille, needing to get some sort of a result. Liverpool playing Napoli tomorrow evening. I did a preview. It's up there on the channel on the Shankly Sessions on the upper tier. I think, to me, this is kind of a free hit kind of game and stuff like that. I think both teams will make a lot of changes, and I don't think either team is preoccupied with who comes first or second. Obviously, Napoli would probably want to top the group after the form they've been in and stuff like that, but I don't think it really makes a difference when you think about the teams that have fallen out of the competition down into the Europa League. And you look at the teams that could potentially come second in the group and stuff like that. Coming first or coming second does not really matter at the moment. But we can see 3 of the Premier League sides are through. So Chelsea, Liverpool and Man City are through comfortably with a game to spare. But Tottenham still have work to do. I would expect Tottenham to go away. They haven't been great on the road in the Champions League either, so they need to be really careful. And you have a Marseille side there as well, with a couple of ex-Gooners in the side who would like nothing more than do a number on Tottenham. So they'll need to be really, really careful. Again, these are the top scorers in there at the moment. Mbappe and Mo Salah are joint top goal scorers. Of course, Robin Lewandowski with 5 and Haaland. And it'd be interesting to see if Haaland is fit for the Champions League game. I'm not too sure. I haven't got an update on that. He was missing at the weekend. Lewandowski obviously is going to drop down into the Europa League with Barcelona. Probably one of the shocks of the tournament so far. Themselves, Atletico, and Juventus all dropping down, and Ajax are kind of big sort of shocks that would normally make it to the next stage. So hence the reason I'm saying that, like, coming first or coming second in your group is not as pivotal as it normally is. Plus, these teams, once they get this round of fixtures out of the way now this week, they'll have plenty of time to regroup and then come back in. I think it's either late January or early February to kick off the Champions League again, knockout stages. So it'll be interesting to see what way the draw on all goes. But yeah, big night of Champions League football coming up both Tuesday and Wednesday. So it'll be interesting to see, do teams rest. Obviously, Tottenham aren't going to be in a position to rest their players. Obviously, a big Premier League game coming up for them at the weekend against Liverpool. Equally as big for both teams. But Liverpool might decide to rotate heavily and rest their players. They can ill afford any more injuries. Tottenham, I think, will have to play a full team because they'll have to get that result against Marseille to make it more comfortable. They thought they had done it last week with that late goal being disallowed. White Hart Lane went absolutely ballistic when Kane scored, and then it all fell apart through VAR, and the disappointment was huge. So yeah, they'll have to pick themselves up, and again, after not a great performance against Bournemouth, but good to grind it out and get back and win in 3-2. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. So that's your Champions League coming up this week. Again, some teams will be vying to sort of solidify themselves at the top of their groups, with other teams coming second. Some won't care as much. They have other issues to contend with. And once they've already qualified, they won't really care. That's your Champions League roundup. Again, if you want to look at the Liverpool-Napoli preview, it's up there. It's on the channel. You can check it out. Anyone interested? Graham Cummins in the comments. How are we, Graham? Good to hear from you, bud. The truth behind Conte not wanting to stay long at clubs is true. Doesn't seem to want to sign a new contract with Spurs, off to Juve most likely. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the way things are panning out, I mean, listening to some of the Spurs fans, Graham, at the moment, they don't seem to be overly happy with Conte as well. So how do you feel about it? I mean, would you be happy? Would you be happy potentially for Conte to go there and maybe Poch go back in there? You have a much better squad now in terms of playing football style and stuff like that. The Conte doesn't really play that style. So some Spurs fans will be saying they're questioning Conte in terms of, is he actually getting the best out of the players? You look at this season so far, Son has looked a pale shadow of himself. We know he's a great footballer. Kulusevski, of course, was out injured. But even Harry Kane has failed to light up the Premier League this season so far. And I wonder, is it kind of just the way Conte is setting up the team to be really, really tight at the back, not give much up, but being really, really careful going forward and stuff like that. So good to hear your thoughts on that, whether you're happy enough with Conte or would you be happy to see him go. I think his contract ends in June anyway. But it might be a great time to get Poch back in. You have a real good squad there at the moment, and potentially Levy would have money to spend as well if you could solidify yourself in the Champions League and earn that type of bread, and also finish with a top four this season as well. You'd be back in it again. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on that. Would you be happy for him to go and Poch go back in, or someone else? Are you happy with him there? The football seems atrocious at the moment, especially for that beautiful stadium. You deserve much better football than what you're seeing at the moment. But yeah, that's our Champions League roundup. Of course, I will be back tomorrow night on the Shankly Sessions with a match reaction to the Liverpool-Napoli game. Graham back in there again. Let's see. His style of play doesn't suit most players, but I'd welcome Poch back 100%. Yeah, I think his style of play just doesn't suit Spurs. I think Spurs want to play. I've actually I heard a couple of Spurs fans there a few weeks ago when it had gotten really kind of bad in terms of the style of play and stuff that, and they were saying they nearly rather not win a trophy than play attractive football week in, week out. And I thought, man, that's a stretch for Spurs fans, isn't it, that they would give up a chance of a trophy? But it was an interesting concept and an interesting dynamic that they were coming out with. It's interesting to hear them say that. But certainly that beautiful stadium and the squad that you have there, you're some great players and stuff like that. You certainly should be playing a better brand of football. But as people often say, they said it when he was going in, it was Conte football all the way, wasn't it? And that's the way it was going to pan out. Let's have a quick chat then about the Premier League so far. We'll take a look, first of all. Something that's a key thing that we tend to look at is the kind of top six or traditional top six, if you like, and how they have fared out this season so far against each other. And it's an interesting one to see it. Tottenham being the bottom of that table, um, with only 1 point after playing three of the top six. And obviously they have Liverpool coming up this weekend, so that'll be an interesting one. But if you look top of the table there, Man United, who've been outstanding. And when you think of the games that they've played so far against the traditional top six, if you look at them there, they've played 5 games, they've won 3, drawn 1, and lost 1. And we know the loss is obviously against City. But against the other traditional top six, they've done really, really well. They beat us, they beat Arsenal. Who else? They drew with Chelsea. Um, and they got beaten by where am I going now? Man United. Beat us 2-1, beat Arsenal 3-1, and beat Spurs 2-0. And then they drew with Chelsea, and then they got beaten 6-3 by City. So they've gotten really good results, bar the Man City game, in terms of the points that they've gotten. 10 points so far from 5 games off the traditional top six is really, really good form on that table and stuff like that. City languishing on 3 points, similar to ourselves. They've been indifferent against the better teams, although they pumped Man United. But still some really good games there to go and stuff like that. But it's interesting to see that United have already played 5 of the traditional top 6. So they're getting some of those tough games out of the way as well, and picking up points as they go about their business. So it's an interesting table just to look at there to see how they've been doing and stuff like that, you know. So if we look at the season so far, I mean, we'll have a look. This is a table here. This is a predictor table, and what it is it's based on the form in the first third of the season, basically, and it's extrapolated that out to how they think the Premier League table will look like. And it has Man City sitting there on 87, which won't be a shock to anyone. I mean, we expected Man City with Haaland coming in and stuff like that to really do a number. But Arsenal have been brilliant, been sensational this season. Arsenal finishing second on 76. But it's kind of, when you look at it, it's kind of a, dare I say, a low points table. It looks more like, I mean, with the exception of Man City on 87, I suppose, which is 3 off the 90. But if you look at it then from Arsenal down, it has a more familiar look than to previous Premier League tables, and I don't mean in the last few years. I mean what we would be used to, around the mid 70s to 80s kind of mark. But Arsenal in second there with 76. I think they will do better than that. Um, Again, it just really depends with Arsenal. Are they going to strengthen in the January window or not? If they strengthen in the January window, certainly they'll have a really, really good season. But they're looking really, really good. Even people there last week, they responded to the criticism in terms of their energy and application, especially in second half. People were saying they run out of steam and stuff like that. They had a great second half the other day. Against Nottingham Forest. And yeah, people will turn around and go, yeah, but it's Nottingham Forest bottom of the league. It's saying Nottingham Forest that beat us the previous week 1-0. So we don't take anything for granted in the Premier League. In third place, Liverpool with 74. I'd imagine to hit that total, we'd have to go on quite a run. We will be expecting players back, obviously, when we come back after the World Cup. I just hope we don't take the approach that they're treated like new signings because we haven't had them, and then we don't bother signing anyone. I'm hoping that we will refresh the squad somewhat in January with a couple of signings. And then Spurs on 70. Yeah, that's kind of, I don't know whether Spurs in the top 4. First of all, I think Liverpool in the top 4, I think, is going to be a tough one. I do expect us to go on a bit of a run. I have expected us prior to now to maybe go on a bit of a run, and we haven't. So it will take quite a run for Liverpool to get there. I do see Chelsea in the top 4. I think when Potter gets to make a few signings, maybe in January, then things settle down. The loss of Reece James is obviously huge, big player for them. And you can see the difference that it makes when he's not there. But it'll be interesting to see Chelsea now once they get the Champions League out of the way. A couple of league games coming up in the Carabao Cup game. Be interesting to see how they play once they have Europe off their back and stuff like that, and they can just focus on the league. But I think Potter will do really well for there, and I'd be very surprised. I'd be very surprised if Chelsea don't make top four under Potter, because there's just a kind of a consistency with him that he goes about his business. At times it may not be pretty, but it'll get you results. But I think they'll strengthen as well. He'll bring in players, and that'll make a huge difference. I think in terms of the top four or even the top six, the key thing will be if teams go out and spend money in January, if they're able to get players over the line, and are they willing to spend the money? Because we know that the transfer fees are going up and the wages, and it'll go up even more in January once the back of the World Cup is done. We're bound to find the next couple of superstars in this World Cup and stuff like that, young lads that will be playing for teams that'll just come out of nowhere and look sensational. And teams will be looking to sign them. I think ourselves, I think the top three will be City, Arsenal, and potentially Chelsea. And I think then ourselves, Tottenham, and Man United will fight it out for the fourth spot. And that's going to be a tough old battle. I think that'll go right to the wire. And then I think you're going to have to look at then whoever drops down into the six. Maybe Newcastle might sneak in there or something like that. I don't expect Newcastle either to drop off the way they've dropped off there in that predicted table there at 57. I don't see that being the case, because I don't think Eddie Howe wouldn't have a tolerance level for that. They're doing really, really well. The only problem they have, Newcastle, is how much they're going to strengthen in the January window, and can they keep the likes of Callum Wilson fit? If they can keep him fit and get Alexander Isaac back and stuff like that, then they should do all right. And obviously Sam Maximin as well. If they can get players back off injury, they could have a real good push at at least the top six, if not better. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in around it and stuff like that. Eddie Howe doing a fabulous job. Then you look at West Ham there in ninth, and Crystal Palace on 47 points in 10th. I do get the feeling it will be a kind of a low scoring Premier League in terms of point totals this time. It won't reach the dizzy heights of the mid to high 90s. But I don't think the table that you see there is a million miles away. I've a funny feeling I think Arsenal will be closer to Man City. I don't think the gap will be 11 points. I'd bite your hand off right now for Liverpool to get third on that points total. Again, I think it's going to be a struggle unless FSG put their hands on their pockets in January. Spurs will be an interesting one as well. I wonder would they make the decision on Conte, and if it's not going well, and if they came out of the Champions League potentially, I wonder would they pull the trigger during the World Cup break and maybe instill Poch in there. If they put Poch in there, then they might have a real good chance. They could play attractive football and get some good results and get some of those players with good, really good level of quality of play to get back humming again the way Spurs can. But yeah, I think I'm looking at it at the moment, and I'm thinking Man City, Arsenal, I think will be closer. I'm funny feeling Chelsea will be third, and then I think Spurs, Man United, and Liverpool will fight it out for this fourth spot. God help those people who get Thursday night football, and if it's us, will go absolutely apoplectic. Be crazy. In terms of the Premier League so far, if you look at the teams there that have there at the moment, I think running down through it, I think Arsenal, as we know, have done a fantastic job. They've had a great start to the season. Dare I say, fans are starting to believe. And if they aren't, they should be. Ride that wave and enjoy every minute of it, even if you don't get there. It's been a long, long time since you had something to cheer about. So make sure you're giving it everything and giving it all every week and enjoying the moment, because it gets whipped away in a moment's notice. So enjoy every bit of it. City are kind of where we expected them to be. They're going to be there or thereabouts, if not up on top. They'll be fighting it out, no doubt. Hopefully Arsenal can hang with them and make it a bit of a competition. I don't see anyone else doing it. Newcastle, Tottenham up there in third. Big win for them against Bournemouth at the weekend and stuff like that. But again, I don't know whether they'll have the consistency to maintain that level. Newcastle, some would say surprise, but not really surprise, up there in fourth. have made some really, really good signings, and also the coaching from Eddie Howe and the players that he has there. He's done a fabulous job, and they'll probably sign some players in January as well, no doubt. United up in fifth. Ten Hag doing a great job there as well. Has the boys pumping. Casemiro's been outstanding in midfield with Ericsson and stuff like that. And even bringing Ronaldo back in, it seems like a conversation is being had there, and he's beginning to understand his role in the team now, either accept it or bugger off kind of thing. But he's very cool, he's very calm, he's very collected in his approach. But there's a ruthlessness to him that you can see in his facials and stuff like that. Martinez at the back has been exceptional. Varane is obviously a loss. David Hay is exceptional as always he is, and stuff like that. So you never rule out United. You always give them a chance. Definitely, I'd say it could be nailed on for a top four by the looks of things, because they're grinding out games as well. The game against West Ham the other day, at times it wasn't pretty, and West Ham had their chances, but when you have the quality of a David De Gea and nets and stuff like that, you always give yourself every chance. Um, Chelsea, form just a little bit indifferent, although they've been excellent, I think, in Europe. The two games against Milan, they were both excellent, really ran the show and stuff like that. It's just that kind of movement from Wednesday European football into Premier League football. Maybe it's an adjustment for Graham Potter as well. It's something he's not used to, and especially at a club at the level of Chelsea. And some of his decision making at times has been a little bit questionable, but I think overall, I think Chelsea fans should be happy with what they're seeing at the moment. Albeit the result at the weekend wasn't what you would expect, but I think they should be happy that there will be progress there, and I think Graham Potter will be a success at Chelsea. They'll bring players in January, no doubt. Fulham up to the dizzy heights of seventh. They're doing really, really well. Marco Silva, of course, they got off to a great start against us the first day of the season, getting that draw, but they should have got much more. Mitrovic has been a revelation. The real question around Fulham coming into the Premier League this season was, could Mitrovic bring his form of the Championship last season back into the Premier League when he hadn't shown it previously? And he has absolutely lit up the Premier League. And it's mad. It's crazy for me when you see some of these, predicted Premier League combined 11s and stuff like that and all. And the chap is never mentioned, and he's been outstanding. It's crazy. Um, Brighton, as we know, lost Potter, brought in the Servi. Kind of started out really well against Liverpool, got a real good result against Liverpool, but then kind of faltered and kind of lost their way. Very un-Potter like. They were very Potter like against Liverpool, but then after that, then I think they went on either 2 or 3 games very unlike Brighton. Dropped points where you wouldn't have expected them to, and looked like they'd ran out a bit of a gas. That the shock of Potter leaving and the new coach coming in was kind of taking effect, but that was outstanding from them the other day against Chelsea. We're down in ninth. I think I've said enough about Liverpool where we're at the moment. I think if we don't strengthen in January, and if we don't pick up a couple of wins between now and the break for the World Cup, I think we're in serious trouble. We will be looking at staring down the barrel of a transition year. We will be out of the top four race if we don't put some points on the board between now and the breakup for the World Cup. So a lot of pressure on us there at the moment. Hence the reason I said in the Champions League review our preview, that I think it's just a kind of a throwaway game tomorrow night, not something that we'll want to get into. But should be interesting. Palace up in 10th, just behind us, I think, on goal difference. Vieira, as we've said all season, when we've done the reviews of the Premier League, Vieira is doing an absolutely outstanding job. I still say that their home jersey is probably one of the nicest jerseys in the league. Really, really nice jersey, but they're doing an outstanding job. They have some great players there at the moment. Saha looking more like the Saha that we know. But Vieira is doing an outstanding job there. At times, again, drop a few results and stuff like that you wouldn't expect. But generally in and about games all the time and really competitive against most teams in the league. Hats off to them. Brentford, doing a really, really good job up there as well in 11th. Won't be looking over their shoulder too much. And when you've Ivan Toney in the form that he's in and stuff like that, some of those players there are absolutely excellent as well. So they will find their level in the league and stuff like that. But again, playing some really good football at times and getting some really good results. Everton just behind them. I think Frank has done a good job of steadying the ship. They were really, really struggling. But since then, he's done a real good job. They've tightened up at the back. They're starting to get a kind of a they're kind of getting a bit of a game out of their midfield now and stuff like that. It will be starting to look like a bit of a player and stuff like that. With Calvert-Lewin back, they should be getting a few goals. I know they ran out against Fulham 0-0 at the weekend. It wasn't a great showing. But Frank, again, he's gone through quite a transition there as well and stuff like that. And he has been missing players, and he is trying to put his stamp on it. I know the expectation from the Everton fans and stuff like that would be to be doing a lot better. But you have to understand where you're at and take that into account and stuff like that. But I think they'll be okay. West Ham under Moyes went through a period there of really, really struggling, but seemed to have found a little bit of form. Um, even the other night against Man United and stuff like that, they didn't look out of place and they looked like there was something in the game for them. At times, Man United struggled in midfield to get hold of it, at times with Rice and stuff like that. Really, really good players. And they will put the points on the board and they will move up the table. No worries there. Bournemouth is one where they've picked up a couple of good results. They're kind of, did I read the other day, they're kind of the form team in the league since the defeat. Since we put 9 past them, they've kicked on and they've picked up some really, really good results. It's mad to think the minus 16 there goal difference. We put 9 past them, So their form outside of that game hasn't been too bad at all. But again, when you're within touching distance of the bottom area and stuff like that, again, as I said, you go on a run of 1, 2, 3 bad results. All of a sudden, you're going to find yourself back down there in it again. And for clubs like Forest and Bournemouth and teams like that, when they get down there, it's a real battle of attrition and stuff like that. And sometimes they just can't find that next result to claw them out of there. So they need to be so careful. Leeds got a spectacular result at the weekend against us, grabbing that late winner, which catapulted them up into 15th. It was badly needed. A defeat the other night against Liverpool would have had them in a really, really poor position and stuff like that. And a lot of people already questioning Jesse Marsh. And whether a change of manager would have been needed. He would have been one that I think if they had lost that game, and again, I think if they do slip back down into the bottom 3 prior to the World Cup, I think Leeds might look at making a change. I'm not saying they will, but I think they would definitely consider it. They are looking a little bit suspect at the back. And if you're coughing up goals, although we didn't get the job done the other night, but generally teams have been scoring against them. And if you cough up goals like that, you're going to find yourself in trouble. Similar to ourselves, we've been coughing up goals early in games as well. And it's such an uphill struggle for us. Aston Villa, you would imagine that they're going to, they got a good result there, I think, last week, wasn't it? And they got a good result last week, but then a real poor result against Newcastle. But they're going to need a manager's bounce to get them out of there pretty quick because they're teetering on the relegation. But I'm sure Emery will go in there and steady the ship and stuff like that. And probably be given a few bob to spend in January, I would imagine. So he should be okay. Southampton is the one that I would worry about. They're right down there, and we seen it last year. They went on a run last year where they tumbled down the league. They were doing okay, and they suddenly went, I think, they dropped from 10th to 15th or something like that. They were in free fall. But this year, they're kind of a third of the way through the season with 12 points. So you know yourself the magical 40 number. So anything from 13 down on a third of the season is in around that 39 points and could be in trouble. So from Bournemouth down, teams are going to have to start picking up points and picking up results in order to remain in the division. Southampton will be one of those teams where they do play nice football, they do create chances, but the chances just don't go in, and that's what costs them the points. They have James Ward-Prowse in there, Shea Adams and players like that, some really, really tidy players. And it's a tough one for them because you look at them there the other day, even that game against Crystal Palace, they still created chances. But if you don't take your chances, you get punished and you don't get the points, and that's what happens. So for Southampton, they're going to need to be really wary of that. And again, they're another team. I think if they dropped into the bottom 3, I think as a club, they might be looking further afield in terms of managers during the World Cup break. Leicester, we kind of spoke about already. They have been picking up a couple of points. Obviously got beaten by City the other day, but getting beaten by City 1-0 is not the be-all and end-all of Leicester's season. They have been poor up till recent times. They were on a real bad run at one stage. Brendan was nearly out the door. And I think even being in the bottom three at the moment, I think they need to pick up a couple of results between now and the World Cup. I think if they don't and they stay in the bottom three, I think Leicester might be taking a look in the manager's uh, shop window as well. Wolves won't be looking in the manager's shop window because they're already been looking there for the last 8 to 10 weeks. They're going to have to just figure out what's going on there. Maybe bring in a couple of players in January or something like that. But they need to get a manager. They need to get a manager sorted ASAP. And Forest routed to the bottom with Stevie Cooper, who we know just signed a new deal, which I think shocked everyone because everyone thought he was out the door. And the next thing they announced a new deal from, which means they're confident and they want to keep him there. But I think he just needs to figure out of such a big new squad that's come in, 22 new players or something like that. He needs to figure out what his starting 11 is, make a decision on it between formation and the players, and kind of stick to it and give it a run, and let people kind of get familiar with each other, if you like, instead of constantly changing stuff all the time. It'd be interesting to look at Nottingham Forest stats to see how many players they've used this season in different formations, especially at the back. Stevie, as I said earlier in the show, tends to be a little bit trigger happy in the way he changes things, and he doesn't give both formations or the makeup of the squad and players in the starting 11 time to land, and that would be a big worry for me in terms of Stevie. So yeah, that's a kind of a quick review. Anfield Road TV, big up, mate. Good to see you. How are you? Dropped a sub there. Dropped a sub. Defo love to get you on the pods sometime soon. Yeah, just hit me up anytime, mate. Anytime at all. I'll bang on after the show as well there and drop a sub on you as well. Not a bother at all. Love the support. Thanks very much. Really enjoyed it there earlier. Yeah, but anytime you want me on, just hit me up. If I'm available, I'll let you know. It's not a problem. Really enjoy talking all things Liverpool. It was good crack earlier. But yeah, that's it. That's just a quick roundup there for the Premier League and how we see it filtering out the predictions, the predicted table based on the first third of results and stuff like that. Also took a quick look at the top six and the results against each other, which is normally key in sorting out that kind of top four position and top six position. Those results are really, really important. We've seen it with Liverpool last year. Our results against the top four and the top six weren't great. And that's kind of, I won't say it's ultimately what caused us, because we did drop points against Brentford and Brighton and Spurs and stuff like that, which is, at times they're the ones that come back to haunt you. And especially I was at the Brighton game, so I know how tough that was. But yeah, this has been your Monday mashup, not your traditional Monday mashup, just kind of a Halloween special. The boys are off trick-or-treating with the kids and stuff like that, but I said I'd drop a little bit of content as we do every Monday. I will be back tomorrow night with a Napoli match reaction and player ratings. I don't expect it to be a difficult night in terms of the match, and I'm very happy that there's nothing on the line in regards to trying to get over the line and qualify and needing a result, that it was all sorted last week against Ajax. We will be back on Thursday with Thursday Tier Talk. Darren will be back. We'll be previewing the Premier League, all that kind of good stuff, and beat the bookie. We'll be giving you our picks and tips for the weekend. I will be back on Friday for a preview for the Spurs game, which is a huge game in our season, and one that we can ill afford to lose. I think we need to try and get 3 points out of that no matter what. And that's basically the makeup for the weekend. Of course, Sunday I'll be back. We'll be doing a match reaction and player ratings to the Spurs game. So it's full on at the moment. It's going to be full on all the way out now till the World Cup. And then in the World Cup, during that sort of 4 or 5 week down period, whatever it is, we're going to be doing some kind of special shows, combined 11s and fun like that, and asking you to get involved. So if you could, before you go out, drop a like on the video, drop a sub on the channel, and hit that bell notification to be notified anytime that we drop content. Absolutely hope we see a much better level of better performance level. Absolutely 100%. So look, can it get any worse? And I don't want to say that too likely, touch wood, but I don't think it can get any worse at the moment. But never say never, but definitely need a much better performance level, and I think we will. We'll definitely get it. Well, folks, until next time, enjoy your Halloween. Make sure it's safe. Don't have any accident with fireworks or anything like that. Go easy on the chocolate if you're being out trick or treating. We don't want the kids going absolutely belugas off their head from sugar rushes from chocolate and stuff like that. Have a great time. Enjoy the fireworks. Stay safe. And we will be back with you again tomorrow night. Till next time, folks, a pleasure.